Recommend. And then.
All right. We'll call the Board of Parks and Recreation regular meeting to order for June 18th. We have a quorum. So the first item will be public input. So anyone from the public wishing to speak, just identify yourself and you have 2 minutes to speak. So just come on up. You don't have to raise your hand. I'm not a good teacher, so I won't call on you.
And you.
You're in.
Go.
And time starts. My name is Jerry Mush. I am a resident of Munster, and I'd like to speak on behalf of the 5-year plan. So I'm a current resident of the subdivision of the Cobblestones. I use the subdivision park daily, walk it, and also live near the park. It's my observation that majority of the people that use the basketball courts drive to the park and are not from the subdivision. It's for those reasons that I would like the the board to review and look at possibly keeping the tennis courts in lieu of removing them and reallocating the plan, or I guess, looking at the plan to, instead of taking the funds to update the multi-use basketball court, right, putting that towards facilities that are used by the subdivision. That was kind of all over the place,
Well,
but
that's okay.
It's okay.
You're perfectly fine.
Are you the only one speaking?
For cobblestone?
yes, I
I was just gonna say, I live there as well, and I just wonder who uses tennis courts, and I live there, so I drive down that way all the time.
yeah, so my recommendation would be to revisit the tennis courts instead of removing them, to update them to pickleball courts.
Oh, pickleball.
Yes,
But you're advocating more tennis.
so I'm advocating to, of the funds that were allocated or earmarked, right, for improving the park, right? I guess I'm asking the board to look at that use of funds, right, to invest in infrastructure that the subdivision and town would deem appropriate, right, or would get the most use of.
All right. Noted.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you weren't all over the place. I understood you.
I understand.
Anyone else looking to speak, wishing to speak? Or just looking to get school credit? Got it. Next item, administrative matters, approval of the park board minutes for May 21st.
I reviewed, had no questions, so I will motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion has been approved and seconded. Yeah, and I wasn't there, so I have to abstain. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And why? Yeah, I'll approve just because we don't have a quorum, so I have to do it. Although I hope you guys are all right with approving minutes that I wasn't there for. Next item is the vouchers. We have 3 of them. Were there any questions?
Again, no questions, so I will motion to approve vouchers 26 dash 6, 80 and C.
I second it.
Been moved and seconded. I have no other questions. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it 3-0. Reports. Mark, you've got a June board report.
Yeah, we'll highlight a few things and answer any questions you might have with it. Centennial Park out of the landfill, his crew's been spending a lot of time coordinating the leachate system work, getting that back operating as it's intended. The work has been approved at the council level. We're just waiting for parts to come in, and they're doing some temporary work, if you will, to get some other things also out there working the right way to fill in the meantime until all that equipment arrives. The social center, the Lions Club has approached us about doing some improvements out there. They're relatively minor, but we're happy to see them happen. They're going to absorb the cost of these. They would be moving one of the cabinets out of the kitchen into the main room on the wall across from the fireplace. They also are going to, the intent is to create a little bit more space in the kitchen so we can bring over to the ovens from the Centennial Park Clubhouse to, which will help with their steak fry and also other events that we have at the social center. So we're excited to see them try to pull that off, hopefully here in time for their steak fry in August. The bike path through Centennial Village, the developer has told the town that they are hoping to see it paved soon. We've been waiting. They are supposed to pave it when they pave the parking lot for the building that's in the northeast corner of that development. The White Oak Park pickleball courts were just refinished last week. Actually, they finished this past Saturday with those 3 courts, so they've been resurfaced out there. The NERC 2024 Greenways and Blueways maps are now in our office. If anyone's ever interested, they can stop by and pick up those 3 new maps. The website calendar was brought up last month at the meeting. We investigated the town's calendar. There is a way to look at it. It's a setting where you can look at it a month at a glance. Still not our preferred method. I wanted to just quickly show you, we did put on the website a different view to allow us to see specifically our concerts a lot quicker. It's not the, as we've talked about the website before, it's not the greatest, but as we see here, it does have our kind of our June, July, and August calendars here, so that they pop up at different things with our various calendars.
Yeah, but
So
Mark,
a little bit easier to grab.
If you go back a little bit,
No, back screen.
just go back to screen, look how much you have to read to get down to that calendar.
Yeah,
Reading this fundamental.
I mean, that's like 7 paragraphs before you get to the thing where it says there's a calendar. Like, we have to start thinking about that and making it accessible. There's got.
well, and I don't, honestly, I mean, it's there, it's on the website. I honestly don't think many people visit the town website. We also have shared those calendars direct on social media pages. I think we'll get better hits and reception from it there, but we'll see if we can figure out a better way to post it somewhere on that page where it goes right to.
Yeah,
it.
there's a reason that people don't go to the website. It's not visible.
Yeah, it's age. We'll work on it. On the recreation side, our interns jumped in feet first. Faith Coombs is our intern. She's helping with a lot of our different programs, running our concerts out on the Monday nights out there at Centennial. So she's doing very well so far. A part-time office clerk has been hired. Melissa Bastistich just started last week. So we're happy to have her aboard and helping out in the office as we try to get her acclimated to all the things that we do. The pool has opened. Average attendance has been about 228 people per day. We've closed down for 2 days due to cold, rainy weather. So far, we've had 9 saves out there this year, so not too bad in comparison to some of our previous years. Session 1 of swim lessons has started with 30 kids enrolled. We also have our second sessions coming up with another set of, and a whole bunch of kids, 41 signed up for private and semi-private lessons as well. The second year in a row, unfortunately, our Kids Fest was postponed due to weather, so we postponed it from June. It'll be held in July now. That'll be just a few changes with some of the vendors that might not be able to make it on that second day, but for the most part, everything will be able to be rescheduled for Sunday, July 21st. The Region Eats Fest is coming up this coming Saturday. I invite everyone to come out and check out. We have 18 different food vendors, so expecting a good sized crowd to be out there on Saturday. On the maintenance side of things, playground landscaping mulch, that a lot of our parks had to be cleaned up. We had a lot of rain just recently, and one night out at the golf course, we had our rain gauge had 4.5 inches of rain one night. So pretty wild to see that we had that. We have, fortunately, with that much rain, the parks actually held up pretty good and kind of took it on. So we were pretty satisfied with that from that perspective. Social Center had some new round banquet tables arrive. We did take out a large cottonwood tree over at Stewart Park. You may have seen, or it's the one tree that was in the mulched in area. It had been leaking water for many years, so we knew it was hollow, holding water. After rainstorms, we had it evaluated, and it was recommended by the company that evaluated for us to remove it as to limit that risk of having it fall when people were out using the park.
Mark, are we looking at dead trees throughout other parks as well?
We are always watching for dead ones, so if you see them, let us know. We can always, but I know Kevin, that's something that he's always looking at. I know they just took down 2 out at Centennial today.
Prior Creek Park's got a couple
Right, Creek Park, okay.
smaller new trees that are dead.
We'll get out and double check on that and add that to our list. The Monon Trailhead, we've had that closed during the train construction, hasn't been used. We started cleaning that up. It's gonna need a lot of work. Hopefully the work they did from the train doesn't disturb our drain from the fountain, which went to a ditch right alongside the old rail bed, so we're gonna find out here as they finish up. The train still has to deal with the pavers. They had to raise the sidewalk and the elevations in that area, so they're gonna have to do some restoration work along there, including a curb and a little bit of a railing, if you will, on the north end of the site there. So that's something else you'll see in the future. Been removing poison hemlock, spraying and removing it out at Centennial Park along the lake and also up by the stairs. It seems to become pretty prevalent, not only here in town, but across a lot of parks across the Midwest, as I've been seeing that on a number of chat boards. The irrigation plays out at Centennial, we're seemingly constantly making irrigation repairs out there to the lines. I think that's just something that as the system ages, is gonna become more and more prevalent. That's something you'll also see later, that I'll also highlight that is something from the golf course that they've noted that they're making a lot of repairs on that part as well, besides the irrigation lines that are in the other part of the park that we maintain. Pro shop for overall, May was a good month, a lot of decent weather, other than that major rainstorm that we had, but otherwise, they're doing pretty good out there. And I think that's everything I'm gonna highlight off that report.
Yep. Anyone have any questions for Mark? Nothing. I can help you with the Phragmites.
Great,
They're a pain.
that would be wonderful.
Yeah. Then I had some questions about the golf course, but I could do that through an email. It's not a problem with some questions. I haven't been out there, so can't confirm some of the questions that they had, so.
Sure.
Doesn't matter. I will get that to everybody. The next item is town council liaison report. Mr. Nellens, you're here, I see.
I'm here.
You have anything for us?
No, I don't.
All right.
Well,
It's okay. We have a lot on the agenda.
no, I had no words of wisdom or advice tonight.
All right. We'll store those up for July then. Next item, Parks and Recreation Master Plan discussion. I see Catherine here.
Yeah, and I'm just going to preface this with a comment. The master plan is a comprehensive plan that the Parks Department uses as a tool to plan things that in the next year, 2 years, 5 years. It is not something that we do within the next 12 months. This is not a architectural plan or roadmap of things that are going to be done. These are just a direction that points us into things that are asked for by the public, right?
Yes,
And by, by the community.
yes, public input and working with the staff and the board here over a number of months.
Yeah, that question just been asked a few times. Just wanted to make that understood to everybody that this is it's a,
Yeah, it's a guidebook of
Guide.
recommendations.
Yeah.
Done every 5 years. Parks across the state do this and submit to DNR and just kind of, update themselves on kind of their goals and objectives for the next 5 years. Not that you would necessarily do every single thing that's listed in here, but they've kind of risen to the top as things that people would like to see done.
Thank you.
So today, today I know I've presented a number of times for the board. We're getting to the end of the planning process. So today I just wanted to kind of give you an update on the process, go through kind of the recommendations chapter and specifically the action table and then taking the question. So an update on the process. There were pretty much 4 phases in this plan that we've gone through: inventory and data collection, research and analysis, results and recommendations. And now we're in this phase 4 of adoption, IDNR submission. So this is kind of just that last spot to take some more input to finalize the plan before we go to IDNR. So I wanted to take a minute to just kind of go through the recommendations chapter. Hopefully the board has seen a copy of the plan, but this will kind of give you a brief overview. So the chapter 6 is really divided into kind of 4 sections. The first being really system-wide recommendations. So these were things that really came to the top that we heard in a lot of the different public input sessions and meetings with staff and meetings with you, the board, and kind of general things that we should be thinking about as we move through updates and investment over the next 5 years. So those were continue to add to the growing trails network, diversify park facility makeup. So kind of thinking about not having every park be exactly the same, expanding public restroom facilities, identify and address accessibility needs, kind of put an emphasis on that system-wide, actively edit facilities, pardon that typo, that are outdated or unused. So looking for things that really aren't used anymore and where can we take those away and put those back to open space. Protect, enhance, and increase natural areas whenever possible, and diversify or expand the types of play offered. The second part of chapter 6 was looking at some of those next big questions that we started to kind of look at during the plan, but really didn't have enough time to fully work through, but know that they're important and they're kind of topics of discussion right now. So one was the indoor facilities question. So that came up as a deficiency when we compared to other communities of your size and their recreation facilities. Thinking through, nature centers, senior centers, recreational centers, indoor space for programming, and how the community could address that in the future. Kind of questioning, is that the park's responsibility? Is it the town's? Is it the schools? How will that be done? So we talked about that quite a bit. We didn't quite, come to a grand conclusion on that. Aquatics facilities was another topic that we talked quite a bit about, just the, ongoing maintenance and investment of the pool. But also that it is a public quality of life amenity. So how you want to continue to provide that, whether that be investing in the pool or doing some sort of different aquatics facility, or going a different direction with that. So that again was something we kind of talked about, but we really didn't get to the conclusion that we wanted to put down in this as a recommendation for the next 5 years. The third part of chapter 6 was looking at concept plans. So we were asked to really dive into 3 parks and start to kind of imagine and illustrate some ideas for those. So the first would be Community Estates Park, then Community Park and Centennial. So I've got those in here. So the first is Community Estates Park. So this would be the newest neighborhood park in the community. It would be in the southwest quadrant of the town and have walking paths, open space, and playgrounds. So we reviewed this several times with the board. That really hasn't changed too much. The second concept was looking at community parks. So one of the older, more developed and larger centralized parks. It's a really important park for programming and has a lot of, kid-oriented activities, recreational fields, the aquatic center, the skate park, playground. So we were kind of playing around with how that could be maybe reimagined to be more pedestrian friendly, to find some open space, but kept that pretty conceptual, just knowing there's some other kind of ideas floating around and trying to understand what the school might do in the future. So left that one kind of loose for the time being. And then the next one would be Centennial Park. So we looked at both the south end and the north end of this park. So this rendering was looking at kind of imagining what you could do if the banquet hall is demolished. So in the public input meetings, the idea of doing a nice pavilion in place of that could be rented, maybe indoor and outdoor. Doing the game court was really popular in the voting exercises we showed. Plaza space, just flexible space for events, kind of more of an adult-oriented space. That could also complement the golf course improvements. And then on the north end of Centennial Park, this is the same location, but 2 renderings. So originally we kind of started to head in the direction of really revamping the existing playground there, expanding it, using play surfacing, making it accessible. At the board meeting, there was some concern about, is that really the right use adjacent to what's happening with Centennial Village? So the rendering on the left is starting to explore, what if you kind of worked with that development and created more of a kind of flexible lawn space that had some plaza, maybe some artwork and seating, shade structures that you could really program out during kind of the bigger events, your 4th of July events and other things, and allow, your parking to not be filled up with different things that typically happen in that parking lot. Maybe use that space for that instead. And then just generally, residents who would be living in Centennial Village using that space as kind of open space, dog walking, passive rack type things. And then the fourth part of chapter 6 is an action table. So, Department of Natural Resources asked that you go through and kind of identify of all the priorities or of all the, project list items you came up with to give those some priorities for the next 5 years. What are you going to do in the first year versus all the way to the fifth? So you're not really held to this. Again, it was just kind of an exercise to prioritize some of the projects on the list. So I've got that in the following slides, which we can kind of go through. As you can see, it's a lot of projects that Mark and his staff do a lot in the parks every year. But I wanted to kind of just point out maybe some of the larger dollar items. So this is the 2025 list that we were starting to propose. So that had playground updates in 2 parks, one in Briar Creek and the other one just below Cobblestone in Community Park. Oh, wait, sorry, in Cobblestone. And then the other big ones were looking at replacing the gas to energy landfill generator, replacing the golf course cart fleet, vehicles and utility, and resurfacing the pool parking lot and Lions Club Drive. And then there's some other kind of smaller things, different trees that need to be removed and, you know, painting gazebos and things like that, kind of lower dollar items. In 2026, we're looking at, so each of these tables has all of the same parks, but kind of looking at what would occur in the park for that year. So some of the higher dollar items there were looking at accessibility in Bluebird Park and kind of improvements that could happen there, restoring some of the artwork in Centennial Park, repainting it, resurfacing the multi-use courts in Cobblestone, which we heard about earlier, so that can be considered for pickleball instead of tennis. And then let's see, bigger dollar items would be upgrading play equipment in Grove Park, parking accessibility improvements at River's Edge Park. And then building a restroom in West Lakes Park that came about with the kind of just request for more permanent restroom facilities. In 2027, looking at Beach Park and potentially removing the basketball courts and converting to pickleball there. Also looking at resurfacing parking lots at Centennial, resurfacing pathways as a part of the Penn City and Centennial. And then some tuck pointing on the exterior of the social center. And then system-wide, we were kind of looking at, there are some grants through IDNR for urban forest assistance where you can have tree inventories done and really kind of get a little bit more meticulous about your tree canopy, which is so important in this community. So that was one suggestion, kind of system-wide. And then the invasive species as well is obviously an ongoing issue for many communities. So kind of thinking through a plan of attack for those. And then 2028, some of the bigger dollar items there, updating and renovating tennis courts in Bluebird, updating existing walking path that's, I think, only 6 feet wide to an 8-foot wide asphalt trail in Briar Creek, adding a restroom facility at Centennial Park that might accommodate the trail and some of those bigger events. And then let's see, we were also kind of looking at exploring opportunities just generally for kind of a central trail corridor that would connect Community Park to some of the other town facilities. So more of kind of a planning effort at this level. And then 2029, the big dollar items there, we're looking at erosion control for Centennial Park along the southwest corner of the landfill. Looking at the idea of providing access for pedestrians in means of a boardwalk or overlook areas at Clayhole Lake, just stemming from people kind of requesting more of that natural area access, and then repairing pickleball courts. So just wanted to kind of lay all those out there and see if there were any that jumped out that you would want either eliminated or moved to a different year. Again, you're not held to this, but if you did want to kind of change that priority, I welcome that. And then obviously any other comments, kind of our next steps would be to perhaps have the Parks Board adopt this plan, and then we will submit to the Department of Natural Resources for final approval. So we've already submitted to them once the draft and got comments back. And kind of implemented those comments, so this would be the final submittal to them.
So it would be okay then to review all this, review the comments that the gentleman had before, submit those to you in writing. You wouldn't have to come up here to do another presentation. We'd amend it if there was amendments. And then we would submit it to DNRs at the,
That's the plan. I think I'm gonna attend virtually in July, just in case there's any last
you
minute.
sure you don't want to drive up by 65? I mean, it's exciting to me.
Yes. But yes, definitely.
I read some of it. I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't read all of it.
I have a few quick questions. Twin Creek Park, when was the last time those facilities out there, the playground facilities have been updated?
Which one?
Twin Creek?
2018, maybe,
Okay. I was out there.
17 or 18.
Okay, I was just curious about that one. And then also, last fall, we discussed adding a second set of stairs out at Centennial, and I don't see that in the recommendation.
That's that erosion
Is that
control.
in your motion? Okay,
Yeah, so the stairs were actually put in as an erosion control measure to begin with, so that would be that.
okay.
We can have that language.
Just so it's clear, because
Well-
I didn't really understand that either.
And if we want to specifically want to say another set of stairs, then we can say that I think the erosion control allows us to potentially do other
Things.
things to
That's fine.
control the erosion, if so deemed to be that choice. It could be stairs, but it could also just be, layered landscaping, kind of like what they did along Hart Ditch, some of the,
Sure.
to reshore up some of the side shorelines.
One other thing, or a couple other things, there's several parks that I've noted, Bluebird, Orchard Park, Grove, that I've been to of recent, that I've noticed that seating, and again, this is a very small issue in regards to the overall plan. But if you've been, in any of these parks, like Bluebird Park in particular, the seating that's underneath the shelter is getting fairly old. Some of those parks, do we look at that as well as part of our overall improvements, or is that just something we add on as we can? I
I
don't
mean, I
know.
think if they're wooden tables,
Yes.
that's something that Kevin frequently is just
Okay.
replacing boards as they're broken, as they're warped, as they're too graffiti ridden, whatever might happen. That's something that we normally will do because of the cost of it. I think that what Catherine, for the most part, tries to stay is towards the bigger ticket
Bigger
items.
ticket items,
That
that's what I
looks
wanted
like
to know.
to be more of a maintenance related issue. But if you ever see anything like that, please let us know, because we don't always see them right away and want to get things prepared.
So a bigger ticket item I'd just like to bring up is Beach Park in particular. I had brought this up previously to Mark about creating some type of football field for Pee Wee football, or what, I'm sorry, I don't know what it's called, but or lacrosse or somebody else to use out there. I know the issue we talked about was lights. I don't think lights are necessary. But even a field out there with some sort of outline or some type of other use besides, it gives some diversity. We don't have another one. I think Frank Hammond uses, they go out there and they measure it off and put cones out there. I think cobblestones is also used for that. And it would be nice if maybe we had a dedicated field somewhere in Munster for that, for our families with young children. It's a big one I hear from a lot of parents. Unfortunately, they didn't give that input. I don't have anybody that plays football or flag football or anything like that, but I do hear it quite often that it would be nice if, especially for Beach Park in particular, because it's a huge wide open space. And it wouldn't take away green space. It would just be another field of some sort. I'm sure there's options out there that I have no idea about to paint it or some, I mean, I don't know what we could do. I don't want to, I'm not asking for some big item. I'm just saying that's something that I've noticed in this plan. We don't have anything for any up and coming areas, like flag football is an up and coming sport. Lacrosse is an up and coming sport. The football in particular is played at Frank Hammond. That's one. And then the other item I wanted to bring up, which is more of a maintenance issue, which is a big ticket maintenance issue, which I have brought up to my fellow board members, is the fields, the softball fields at Centennial Park, or Community Park, I'm sorry. They are in dire need of maintenance of some sort. They have flooding fields. Many games are canceled because we are unable to use our fields due to flooding in the outfields mostly. Also, we have severe erosion of all the rock, and the fence either needs to be picked up and the rock shoved back in, or refilled or resurfaced in some way, shape, or form. Those fields are used quite often and are a huge part of a draw, and they bring things to that parking lot area because there's a lot of kids running around in that area all the time. But that's a big one, I think, that needs to be considered as part of this, because if we have dads, we have parents out there right now currently sucking water from those fields before the games. We have parents who don't even have children playing sports who are out there helping with the fields just because it's that significant of an issue. Majority of high school games were canceled at home because we had to be moved to other fields. So I do feel like that's some sort of just open to discussion at some point, that we have to consider that too. Yeah, I'm fine.
I just have one area that I want to discuss, and that is just the Centennial Park. As far as, I'm still gonna maybe request I have still this issue with the playground where it's at. And planning to put the playground, or we put the playground there by hotel. I don't know, I have an issue with that. Just because of that, the hotel, I feel like the playground should be moved to the south end of the park. So if there, and I think I talked about this at the last time with you. If on the north side, it would be great to visualize that we want to use the amphitheater, we want to use more adult themed events, concerts, those we had talked about the wine festivals and beer gardens and doing all that stuff on the north side, and then on the south side, adding flipping it, I guess, is the thought.
Okay,
So I just wanted to see what you guys thought about some sort of design with that in mind, if that is at all possible. I realize I'm just one person, and that's my opinion, so just want to throw that out there to be considered. Still, is that flipping of that playground from the north side to the south side of the park, just because of the development that's there.
sure. And that is why we did the second alternative of no playground on the north side. And you're saying putting the playground where the banquet hall is now? Or just somewhere
Right,
on
so
the south
in the
side?
south side, in your rendering, I guess what I was visualizing, I love the idea of the in the middle section, but maybe on the east side of the park, something, the playground area, moving it out to that end. As opposed to, because the dog park's out there, the playground, it just makes more sense to me to have that, that kid-friendly area out that way, and then have the amphitheater with the other stuff on the other side, with the other stuff that goes with Centennial Village. The hotel and the restaurants and all the other things, it just flows better to me,
Mhm.
so.
And the last meeting I was at, that was not a board meeting, public meeting, there was some discussion even about should there be a playground at all at Centennial Park?
Right.
So, I definitely think, that could be an option too, that it's more just adult oriented and you don't have one, maybe you invest in that somewhere else. So we're totally open to that, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Might I make a comment?
Absolutely.
I was here, and I was involved with Centennial Park with respect to that playground. And of course, the playground was there before the development was there. And we had quite a discussion about the hotel and the playground and potential problems. And unless Mark is aware of anything, I'm not aware of any problems that have developed there. Plus, if we still have those those three buildings that you can,
Shelters.
the shelters. For having families and things like that, it's nice to have the playground there. And it's been a while since I've been to the playground, but I believe that playground is used fairly regularly. And again, with the shelters there, I know sometimes schools scheduled times to be there after when the school is closing and they have a gathering of students. So I would personally recommend that the playground stay there, may or may not be in favor with the board, but also at the dog park and the other south end of the Centennial Park, you don't have the topography for it. Everything is up. And I don't know that you want to put the playground up at the top of the hill and have to have the moms and grandmas walk all the way up there. I'm not sure where.
Well, you gotta
you're
remember
thinking
the
about
building
putting-
is going, so when we're reimagining that, we're talking about the building being gone and putting the pavilions and whatnot on the south end, so you gotta kind of
Well, I
visualize that.
just, yes, make sure we have that all.
So that's what I'm talking about, is when we're reimagining that south end without the view and putting the pavilions and the things on the south, that we're talking about, what are we gonna do with that area, and, once the view's gone, I guess.
Well, that's one thing, but also, if I'm not mistaken, the parking lot's smaller at the south end than the north end. You have a lot more parking spaces. So if you bring more activities to the south end, you don't have a parking lot for it. My comments. Again, that's just a comment from the council liaison.
Any other comments?
I have a question, I guess. I'm thinking about your comment, the gentleman's comment. Sorry, I don't remember your name. Jeremy, thank you. I just want to clarify something. When we talk about neighborhood parks, for example, like Cobblestone, it's like, when we think about those parks, it's our intention that they have something unique to those homeowners that live in that particular area, whether it's Orchard Park by me, it's Cobblestone, it's White Oak has a park. So we kind of try to plan parks in a vicinity where there are none, or to have areas for families to go to, correct?
You'd like to have them within a shorter walking distance available to those neighborhoods, yeah.
Okay,
As far as what equipment or amenities within each site, that could.
very.
Yeah.
And then when we look at where we have fields, like we have the baseball field over there, the basketball courts. People can book those and use them, right? Like other teams and town people. Is that correct? The baseball
Yeah.
field, right?
Are you talking about this?
Yes. I'm getting.
Are you getting to a
I'm
point?
I'm getting to a point.
I'm
I
a
know.
friend, I'm gonna go out.
It's gonna come, yeah.
Wait a minute, you're not the president. I'm following her.
But I guess my question then becomes like, when we look at taking away or adding things, do you have a recommendation as to how we should be looking at those things when we're evaluating it? For example, I noticed we're talking about removing a lot of things, and not a lot, but adding pickleball courts quite a bit across the town. I noticed at Frank Hammond, you redid the tennis courts to have pickleball in those courts, which is phenomenal, by the way, well fenced in, very nice. Is that how we should, do you see what I'm saying? Like,
Well, I think
we take something away and add something, how,
I mean, somewhere in there, we have to balance out what we have available to
Okay.
operate our park system. I mean, and a lot of this plan is aspirational, I mean, without a doubt. But, and it's challenging to keep up with everything that we have to maintain. I think what we're trying to do is also be responsible to the current demands and trends that are out there, and pickleball across the country is one that's super popular. The amount of courts that we have by additionally striping them on tennis courts allows for some additional flexibility. I think that most pickleball players would still prefer them to be their own independent courts that they can have. I think what we've learned in this planning process, and I think Catherine's support, is that I think across the board, any type of facility, people are wanting to see them grouped together. And instead of having one pickleball court at 5 different parks, they'd rather have 5 at one park. And if you're gonna go to play pickleball, you're gonna go there, and hopefully one of those courts is open, because if it's only the one in your neighborhood, you might go there and someone else is using it, now you gotta wait. So I think that that's what we're learning. As far as removing some of the other things that are maybe aren't used as much, like you mentioned the tennis courts, at some of the parks where we might have more congregated center locations, like at schools and so forth, I think those are better. The problem is the amount of green space we have is just not there for our fields. As far as permitting any groups to use them, we pretty much, the marching orders that I've been kind of given is we're trying to placate the main focus groups that we have for the community, which is, you know, your Munster Little League, Munster Girls Softball, Munster Baby Ruth, Munster Pop Warner, Munster Soccer, Midwest Wings, Munster Lacrosse, and, you know, trying to get all those spaces. Every year, as I get permit requests from all those organizations, we don't have enough space to meet their needs. We do the best with splitting it up and divvying it up as best that we can to give them that space. Removing a couple of tennis courts at a spite, you know, park isn't gonna create a whole other baseball field or soccer field, but it might give better flexibility to move goals around or restripe it in a different, aspect, or take into account where we may have routine flooding in that park and the field can shift that way, so maybe part of the field isn't underwater anymore. So I think that's an area that's really difficult. Just that I will point out, you mentioned beach earlier, just so you're aware, beach, for instance, is permitted to softball, Little League, and Midwest Wings every year. Midwest Wings has 3 soccer fields out in that park. They're not there year round. They're there typically spring and fall. So adding Pop Warner there, that's fine, but then we need to give Pop Warner whatever other field they've been permitted. Pop Warner, the only place we've had them permitted the last 2 years has been Cobblestones. That's where they've been, that site, because they're mainly fall. And then the spring is typically lacrosse out at Cobblestones. The one other area that Pop Warner will use for flag football would be West Lakes, some of the shared area in the middle of the park out there. So it's kind of a shell game, between everything without creating additional, you know, green space somewhere. That is one of our big challenges that we have, so.
This draft will be available on our website, correct?
This draft is up on our agenda right now, as part of our meeting agenda. It's on the, here, it's laid out chapter by chapter on the website.
So the general public has the next 30 days or so to comment, get back to us before we adopt it. So that's what I would recommend if you have any further questions or comments. Or if you want to go on social media and start a civil war, whichever you want.
Mr. President,
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, have we factored in the tennis courts from the school town?
You haven't heard anything more about that
I'll follow up on that, but I believe
concept.
I'll follow up and give you an answer. But that would give you 10, I believe they were talking about 10 tennis courts.
Which would then be ideal to remove the ones from Cobblestone, say, and like make that a pickleball court or whatever. That would
Yeah,
make that.
and you were in
that
a
would make
surplus down the board, you're just based on your population, you were in a surplus on almost every category except for indoor space, so removing a couple tennis courts would be kind of in line with that.
All right. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.
Have a safe trip back.
Thank you so much for all your work. Thank you.
We'll go to the next item, 4B, that is Pro Shop and Cart Storage Project Change Order number 5. It looks as though that's the gas line, huh?
Yeah, this is part of the gas line. This is actually, there's 2 parts to this change order. One is that we changed the insulation in the cart storage barn, cart storage building. We didn't insulate, we just changed the wall and are insulating the ceiling so it better keeps heat into that building. We're not gonna keep it heated like we would in office space, but enough so the batteries and that are, you know, battery charged golf carts will be plenty fine to store in there all winter long. So that's an add for that potential change order. And then also the other part of this change order is to install gas piping from the Pro Shop building to the cart storage building, and also giving us a empty conduit between those 2 buildings. So when we in the future run conduit or any kind of data between the 2, especially with the cart storage building being the highest roof line in the park, if we need to put any kind of antenna, that's the building we're gonna want to get it as high as we can to shoot wirelessly signals out throughout the park, potentially, if we're doing that. We still will have an additional change order for the gas line from the meter location to the building, still coming. We're still hammering out that this is the area in between the buildings, and they're trying to get that all finished and wrapped up and get the concrete work going in that area. So that's why this one was more pressing and want to get this to you here initially for this consideration.
Yeah, ask away.
Quick question. So if we move, if that the view goes away, depending what the town council decides, and that space is empty and we decide, or somebody decides to build something there,
Mhm.
do we need to do anything now with this decision to accommodate anything in the future?
No, unfortunately, that decision, just because there's so many flexible pieces of that, we're gonna have to, that'll have to be incorporated into what that.
Whatever's
decision is at that point.
Okay,
If that, let's say you build another indoor building that needed its own gas line, we probably will very likely need to run a new gas line to that building all the way from the main out on Calumet Avenue, because the sizable one that's coming in now, I don't think will be enough to handle that building. Well, it depends on how big of that building is too, plus these new buildings where we're taking it to.
Any other questions on the change order? Well, three of us, so
I recommend that we approve the change order as presented.
Second.
we moved and seconded to approve change order in the amount of $35,020.85. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Moving on to the car show event report.
All right, I know these were over a month ago, but we've been obviously quite busy, so we've just now had time to wrap up the event report. So starting with the car show, it was on May the 4th, so we did a Star Wars theme where we had Star Wars trivia and Star Wars bounce house, and we even gave out a Star Wars themed award out of this world for the car. So that was all received very well. We had 154 judged cars plus 67 on the grass. We had about 15 judges and everything went extremely well. We always get a lot of great feedback about it, how it kind of starts the summer for all of the car owners. We're extremely thankful for the 9 sponsors that we have. They are all on site throughout the entire event. And then at the end of that event, Mara was interviewed by WJOB. They were actually around all day, taking videos and statements from other people. So that would be up on their Facebook.
Great.
All right, Cash for Clutter, that was the following Saturday. That went extremely well. It was a beautiful sunny day for them. We had 103 total vendors, so that is both parking lots full plus the grass on the west side of the lot, nearest the Fireman's Memorial. So we may be adding more grass space in the future. However, it's kind of tricky because if we get a ton of rain that week before, we don't want vendors stuff, swapping the grounds and making it unwalkable. But Abby does that along with some volunteers, and normally we have a vendor come and pick up unused stuff, but since COVID, that has been extremely hard and nobody wants to come out on a Saturday, so that's still a work in progress, but luckily Kevin's staff has come out with a dumpster where a lot of people just throw stuff away instead of wanting to bring it back.
All right. Thank you. The next item is Frank Hammond Park Track Improvement.
We have the opportunity to have some reduced mobilization costs because the town is already engaged with Milestone Contractors to pave some streets near Frank Hammond School. We approached them about getting us a price to resurface the track. And what you have before you is a recommendation to award resurfacing of the track to Milestone. I'm asking you to make it at a not to exceed $64,000, which will give us some flexibility to include some patching costs. The actual cost that they quoted was the $56,443.50. But at $50 a square yard for anything that they may find, like where there's larger cracks, and I know there's some larger cracks out there, so we want to go a little bit more.
Yes, there are.
To get that repaired out there adequately. So giving us that flexibility to do that. I will also just add, this is strictly only the re-asphalting. So this part has no issues with restriking lines. Our intent would be to restrike the lines. I'm working on getting some additional quotes. I've gotten one so far for $6,200 from Permaseal, who does a lot of our tennis courts. It's a debate whether, or I wanted to ask also a question or your guys' opinion as to whether you'd like to see the track when it's relined. If we see it, is it sufficient enough to just put the lines? and maybe like finish line? Or do we want like the full track exchange zones and, you know, the start lines for the 200, which is, you know, staggered start lines and things like that? I think as more recreational track, because the elementary school doesn't use it, I think the lanes are sufficient. Just the lane lines, if you will. If someone ever really wants to mark out for a track, I mean, they can always chalk it.
Some schools use it. I'm not sure if they reserve it, but they do use it. I would just say just line it is perfectly fine. I use it.
Lines, let's do our parking lots.
Well, you could add that with that added money, there's a small parking lot at Frank Hammond that is widely used for the tennis courts, for walking, for pickleball. That place is used.
Yes.
They're all used, they all.
Those lines are pretty good. Are you saying?
No, I don't know, I haven't checked
In
today,
General.
Yeah, yeah.
We need to.
but I'm just saying, if they're already there.
Right.
There's about 100 feet to it.
Does this then remove this item from the proposed future plan, because it's in there for $125,000?
Yeah, this would be that.
Save money.
See, so,
Yeah,
and this is funds taken from.
this would be funded through existing park bond balance.
I will motion to approve the, Frank Hammond Park track improvements for an amount not to exceed 64,000.
Nervous.
Tongue just,
Should I vote on this since I'm part of this Old Town of Munster and this is Frank Hammond? I'm not sure if that, I don't have any kids there or anything, so, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I still have it.
No,
I will second the
question.
motion. I just wanted to clarify.
I mean, I use the track, so I'm gonna vote for
Yeah,
it.
you too.
All those,
the literal purpose of the liaison is that you get a voice.
I know that.
all those in favor say aye.
You're good.
We're just-
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it. What is it?
I will, I have the authorization to do the perm, at the cost of so far what perm seal has, so we'll take care of the striping. We won't need any action on that, proposal, so.
Mark, would it be, would I be able to request though that somebody reach out to Sean Dudley to at least so that he's aware of when that will happen at Frank Hammond, so there's nothing happening with the school or
Yeah,
summer
Yeah,
camp using it?
and their intention is to do it this summer when they're out there doing the
Okay.
streets, and they gotta get that done before the
Yes.
school year, so
Yeah.
this will
Yeah,
happen.
I just don't want to assume that summer camp's not using it or some, you know, or
We're
that,
actually out there this year.
or you'll hear it, Elliot. Okay,
But we'll share it.
okay, thank you. All right, happy to pass it on.
Two more items, we'll go on to playground safety surfacing improvements.
So this is, something we did about every 3 years, which is a really a major, reinstall of the wood chips, as they're commonly referred to. It's actually engineered wood fiber, which is the fall zone attenuation underneath the, playgrounds, the safety surfacing. This is a proposal that from the same company that did it last time. They come with they'll deliver all the material to one site at Public Works. They'll come load it up in their blower truck. They go out there with a hose, blow it into the playground. It's really great. They did a great job cleaning up. Really, we gave them a high recommendation after they, did the work a few years ago for us. This is actually a proposal to deliver approximately 15 semi-loads of material and then distribute it out to 15 different sites at a cost of $44,400. We are in the midst of getting proposals for Briar Creek and Cobblestone Park playgrounds, as Catherine mentioned, which is both on next year. So we are gonna omit those for now because the intention would be to redo everything there when that time happens as part of those proposals. So this proposal includes the other 15 playgrounds that have wood chips in the community, and we are recommending an award for Superior Ground Cover to accept the proposal from June 11th, 2024 for this work.
So moved.
I'll second it.
And seconded to go ahead and contract for the playground safety surface improvements in the amount of $44,400. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, ayes have it.
One last item that came in this morning, we didn't think we were gonna get this. I added it though to the agenda. This is an encroachment agreement from Wolverine Pipeline. This is something that, Attorney Westland for the town had reviewed an early on version, a generic version of it. This is more specific. He also reviewed that and gave us the approval and said, recommended that it was fine for you to engage. This is basically saying the easement that they have that cuts through Community Estates Park, that basically we're not gonna be building anything on top of that particular area. So our plan, as part of this item, the grading plan that was put in, that also had the rough area where we plan to put a playground out there, was included, and, that defines this, so we bring this to you with a recommendation for improvement, because within the next few weeks, hopefully, the development of that subdivision is gonna be out there doing this regrading work, so we wanted to have it,
Understood.
before that work is done.
I will motion to approve Mr. Repay signing, authorization to sign the encroachment agreement with, Wolverine Pipeline.
I'll second that.
I will sign it. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, ayes have it. Just a quick note before we adjourn, all this information is on our website, or I've got an entire tree here if anyone wants a hard copy of it. Our next meeting will be July 16th, 5 PM here at Town Hall. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
And I need a second.
Oh, second.
And we're good. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, ayes have it.
It's just us.
Just us. The other two left us.
Just us.
Thank you, everyone.